Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Gizmo, your neurospicy demonic bookworm, here with another book review video. Thank you so much for the likes, follows and comments I've received on my last two videos. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing to my channel, Gizmo the Bookworm, or joining my Patreon, link in the description below. I thought this time I would review a book from one of the best authors that the earth has been blessed to have been given, Sir Terry Pratchett. He was responsible for building one of the best worlds I have ever read, on par with Tolkien, and so much more funny, Discworld. Discworld is a flat disc that flies through the galaxy, rotating on the heads of 4 giant elephants, which are in turn held in place on the shell of the great turtle Atuin. All of his Discworld series takes place in this universe, and as the book goes on, you become familiar with the different types of people who live on this disc. My Auntie Mandy's to blame for my obsession with Terry Pratchett, actually. She still to this day talks about him with such reverence that it was almost blasphemous not to delve into his world. I'm so glad she did. The books usually cover a range of creatures and groups of people, ranging from the ill-organised but well-intentioned Watch, the dozy wizards at the Unseen University, the people who make cities like the Great Ankh-Morpork tick, the witches who try to help their local villagers while always getting involved with things that they shouldn't do, and one of my personal favourites, Death himself, who has an obsession with humans and cats. The characters become friends as you read through the books, and you become very much invested in their stories. The day I heard that Sir Terry Pratchett died, I sobbed like a banshee, and to this day I'm still not over it. I don't think I ever will be. I'm thankful that his daughter Rhiannon has vehemently opposed the idea of her taking over the Discworld for her dad, and is letting it be its own thing while she continues to be a successful author in her own right. The book I'm reviewing for today's video is for Wyrd Sisters by the legend that is Terry Pratchett. The blurb on the back of the book says, "Witches are not by nature gregarious, and they certainly don't have leaders. Granny Weatherwax was the most highly regarded of the leaders they didn't have. But even she found that meddling in royal politics was a lot more difficult than certain playwrights would have you believe." So basically, Wyrd Sisters is a satire of Macbeth by Shakespeare, with a little bit of Hamlet thrown in for good measure. I knew the book would grip me immediately when the first scene sees our trio of witches around a cauldron, and one of the witches saying, "When shall we three meet again?" This is a nod to the infamous witches in Macbeth. After some description of the eerie atmosphere, it's immediately shattered by a voice saying, "Well, I can do next Tuesday." It shows that these are not your stereotypical Shakespearean witches at all, and it adds to the humour. I might be slightly biased, but I adore these witches. Let me set the scene for you. You have Granny Weatherwax, also known as Esme, who is prim, proper, doesn't like to meddle with other people's affairs unless she has to, and the unofficial leader of them. Next, you have Nanny Ogg, also known as Gaither, who is the complete opposite of her counterpart. While Granny Weatherwax is portrayed as a spinster who is stern and lean and tall, Nanny Ogg is described as bubbly, quite sexually promiscuous back in her day, lover of fun, and has a lot of children, all who exist in adulthood, to do her laundry for her. The third witch to add to this already dynamic duo is Magrat, who has been trained by another witch to do things properly. So think of all the bells and whistles you would associate with stereotypical witches and stories, the cobwebs in the house, the jewellery, the pomp and circumstance of the rituals. The other witches in this 3-person coven have had more life experience and know that a lot of the bells and whistles aren't actually required to make a spell work. But, as they agree, sometimes people do expect to see that sort of thing. They are witnesses to affairs they shouldn't be involved in, naturally, and as the years go on, Granny Weatherwax realises that the world around her is rebelling against the current state of the leadership. They then embark on trying to help out as best they can without getting too involved, as Granny Weatherwax would say. We all remember what happened with Black Alice and the Castle with Sleeping Beauty. It has been adapted into an animated TV series that you can see on YouTube actually, and a play that is being performed globally. I actually went to see the play a few years ago with my sister and they got the casting perfect. To date, it has not been made into a TV adaptation or live action film. Personally, I think a TV show would be best in order to get as much of the book in there as possible. There are so many funny bits in these books that I think it would be destroyed if they took any of it out. My ideal casting for the witches would have been Maggie Smith for Granny Weatherwax, Miriam Margoyle or Kathy Nimjay as Nanny Ogg, and Jane Horrocks for Magrat. Let me know in the comments who you would like to see cast as the witches. There was also a board game based in the Discworld, which I've not played yet to my disappointment, and a tabletop role-playing game in the works, with a first playthrough having just been shared on YouTube. It looks so good. I would love to run a game of it when the full version of it comes out. It definitely gives a nod to the writing style and theme of the books, because you get extra points for puns, or punes, as some characters would call them. The people who have made the game are clearly massive fans of Terry Pratchett. The only thing I would say in this instance against the book is true of all Terry Pratchett books, and that is the use of asterisks constantly. It is used as a comedic device to give readers extra bit of information about the situation or tidbits of backstory. They're incredible to read, but I think new readers of Pratchett and his style of writing might get a bit confused by a sheer amount of them, and it doesn't particularly translate well into ebook versions. I don't have a problem with it, but as a balanced review, I need to say that some people might have an issue with it. Also, with all books that draw on references from our world, a lot of what Terry Pratchett books do, some of the jokes might go over some people's heads. The beginning, for instance, might not be as funny for someone if they're completely unaware of the witches of Macbeth and would not recognise the whole "when shall we three meet again" thing. It may be more of a problem nowadays, but one of the things I really enjoy about Pratchett's writing is that his references in his books are usually common knowledge, so they aren't too obscure. One of my favourite parts of this book is when the witches go to see a play, and Granny Weatherwax has no idea that it's not real. She starts shouting out at the audience, pointing. She's absolutely disgusted that no one seems to be bothered by the fact that a character's just died on stage, and then points out that she can see the dead person breathing. I must have read that book over 20 times, and even now, just thinking about it, it has me in hysterics. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who wants a good laugh and some clever writing with relatable characters and an amazing, easy to follow storyline. I would give this book 9 out of 10 because I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone. If you want to read more of Terry Pratchett's work, I highly suggest doing so. On Google, you can find recommended reading order lists if you want to follow a certain character's storyline, as opposed to reading them in chronological order. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and remember, keep reading.